My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, to help you do that, I'm going to give you a market update for what's going on in Eagle River, Alaska. This is where I personally live. It's a pretty big market here in the local South Central region. And so we'll be talking about that, and I'll go ahead and look specifically at the residential, condo, and the multifamily market. So speaking to the investors, and go ahead and give you guys a summary at the very end on what it is that we're seeing and what we can kind of anticipate moving forward into 2022. So before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like. If you haven't done so already, do subscribe. And without further ado, let's go and jump into the market update for what's going on in Eagle River, Alaska. Now keep in mind, this market update is going to be for the month in which we have the most current information, which is going to be December of 2021. So on the residential side for the year 2021 in December, what we saw is that the inventory definitely did take a drop from the previous year. There were 63 properties that were available on the market, and now there are 45, or there was 45. So that tells you just how compressed in the inventory was, because that covers all the different price ranges in Eagle River. So that's number one. Secondly, what we saw is the number of properties that sold, even though the market was really compressed on the inventory, we see that the number of properties sold actually did increase by about 20. I believe there were 42 properties that sold on the market this time last year. Now there were 65. So that does give you a pretty good indication that even though the inventory is low, the demand does still remain pretty high, as you can also see by the year totals, that the number of properties that sold actually did increase by, I think it was about 260, if I recall correctly, for the total number of properties that sold in a market the size of Eagle River. That's significant. The next thing that we see is that the average sold price in Eagle River for residential properties did increase by approximately $30,000. The average sold price this time last year was about $399,000 in December. This past year, it was $429,000. So approximately $30,000 increase for the average sold price, which is about what we would expect. We'll talk more about that in the summary though. The next thing we're going to check out is what's going on in the condo market here in Eagle River. And it's not a particularly large segment of this market. Eagle River is not the biggest market in the world to begin with. And the condos, not really a big part of this market, but it is a growing sector. So let's go and talk about it. So this time last year in 2020, the number of condos that were on the market in December was 17. This past year in 2021, December was 7. So yeah, pretty sizable decrease if you're looking proportionally in the number of condos that are available in Eagle River. The next thing we see for condos is that the number of properties that actually sold did actually double from where it was the year before. This time last year, there were 6, and now there are 12. And that's actually right in step with what we saw overall for the entire year, because it actually doubled for the number of properties that actually sold for condos. It went from 62 overall for the entire year to 124. So doubled exactly for the entire year over day compared to the previous year. Next, what we see is the average sold price for condos actually took a bit of a hit. And this is actually a little counterintuitive for what we would expect for seeing that number of properties that sold, even though the inventory has been so low. So the average sold price in December in 2020 was $283,000. For this past year is $273,000. So despite the fact that we're seeing a lot of movement there, the average sold price has maintained or come down just a little bit or increased just a little bit. You've got a little bit of wiggle room there pretty much for every month. And it's not shooting through the roof like what we would see for the residential market across the year. So that's interesting. Let's keep an eye on that, because it is a smaller segment of the market though, having small changes one way or the other on even the condos that are being sold. Maybe they're being sold at a higher rate than they would have before, but because to begin with, they were $100,000 condos, and the ones in 2020 were like $200,000 condos, you can see how that would throw the numbers off here. So still something we're going to keep an eye on though. Let's take a break real quick here. For those of you who've been watching for a while, you do know that I actually do offer a seller guide for those of you who might be interested in getting your property on the market here soon. This is definitely a strong market to be doing it, and I've got a lot of folks that do watch the channel that are constantly looking for more options out there, so I'm really trying to create more opportunities for them. So if you do have plans in the future of going onto the market, certainly feel free to take advantage of the seller guide I've created for you to start giving you the roadmap for what it looks like moving forward. If that's something you are interested in, reach out to me on either Facebook, my website, slide into my DMs on Instagram. I've got a lot of ways for you to reach out to me down below in the description section. So do take advantage of that, and let's go and finish today's market update, looking at what's going on in the multifamily market. Now, what I would really point out about the multifamily market is this includes everything from the little duplex all the way up to the big commercial 30 unit property. So it really does cover a lot. But looking at condos, I don't think so. Multifamily properties here in Eagle River, what we see is that the inventory took exactly 50% cut from where it was the year before. And the previous year, it was 6 properties were available. This past year, it was just 3. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. We'll talk about it in the summary, though. The next thing that we see is that the number of properties that sold in Eagle River during the month of December was actually 1-for-1 compared to last year to the year before that. So 1 sold this year, 1 sold that year. What we see is overall for the entirety of Eagle River, actually 19 properties sold, which is up from the 14 that sold the previous year. So that is promising. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you here, and this is just kind of a crazy thing to look at, and it's just compliments of having a smaller sample size to deal with, but the average sold price in Eagle River this time last year was $225,000, and for this past year in December it was $635,000. But again, we just had 1 property sell, so that really kind of explains that that big disparity there. So let's go and do the summary real quick. On the residential side, we are still seeing inventory does remain low, demand remains high, which means that we can expect to really see a lot of the same kind of moving forward. Now, as soon as the interest rates start going up, then we're going to start seeing a little bit of a pulling back of the demand for properties here in the area. So that doesn't mean it's going to suddenly switch. That's not going to happen. Everyone keeps thinking that there's going to be this collapse, and you're looking to the past, thinking that's going to inform you for what's going to happen in the future, and that's just not, it's not in the numbers. So we can kind of expect to see more of the same. And that's just the way it is on the residential side. On the condo side, we can expect to see kind of more of the same as well. Now, this one's interesting because the sample size is so small that we kind of have to keep an eye on what's happening as far as the trends go. Because it gets a little harder to track when the sample size is actually smaller, because it might just be the properties that sold were a little bit smaller. So of course, average sales price and everything's going to be a little bit lower. It's not an indication that anything bad is happening. So it is something we'll keep an eye on, but I'm really suspecting it's kind of more of the same, in line with what we're seeing on the residential side. Now, for the multifamily properties, this remains to be in pretty high demand, and the reason for that is Eagle River has a pretty low cap rate, what you can expect to spend versus what you're going to get back, which is good because if you come in as an investor, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time dealing with a lot of issues that might be created by having a multifamily property. So a low cap rate is a good sign. Eagle River remains a very, very opportune place for investors when you can find one. So that's really the thing. It's a little tougher to find multifamily properties here in Eagle River. So if that's something you're thinking about, certainly reach out to me and let's see if we can either find you one, or if you're wanting to sell one, let me know. We'll help with that as well. So this is your update, and let me know if you do have any questions in the comments section down below. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.